that Bitcoin is ultimately the best form factor to transact in and store value in. But as you said, there is a big push. I think a lot of the stablecoin issuers are trying to find this new use case for stablecoins. But stablecoins are only useful so long as you're allowed to use them. And I think eventually that utility might start to narrow as they become more popular because they can be regulated and controlled.
Bitcoin just broke below 60,000 and the bears are loud. 4-year cycle, bear market, capitulation. The same voices that missed the last 3 Bitcoin revivals are already writing the obituary for this one. Samson Mow is not writing an obituary. He is writing a completely different story. And the data behind it is harder to dismiss than the fear currently driving the headlines. While analysts debate whether the cycle is broken, Mow argues they are asking the wrong question entirely. The supercycle thesis was never built on timing. It was built on supply mechanics that no bear market narrative changes. Fixed supply, expanding sovereign demand, and a regulatory environment that just shifted permanently. The Clarity Act is not background noise. To Mow, it is the structural catalyst that most cycle analysts are not pricing in. And the combination of that clarity with supply dynamics creates a price surge the bears have not modeled for. Fast, violent, unexpected. Stay with us, because Samson Mow's final prediction in this video is the one nobody in crypto is currently ready to hear.
I think the Clarity Act only matters to Bitcoin and it affects market sentiment that the market seems to think it's important for Bitcoin. But I don't really think it's important to Bitcoin. I don't think who the Fed chair is matters to Bitcoin. Nothing really matters to Bitcoin. If you really understand Bitcoin and you understand the mechanism by which Bitcoin exists, then you know that nothing matters. Bitcoin is inevitable. And it's all just narratives of the day that people think will help or not help. But the Clarity Act is really just about fractional reserve bankers wanting to keep doing fractional reserve banking. That's the end of it. They're fighting about stablecoin yield. And this is why it doesn't really have anything to do with Bitcoin, because it's about stablecoins and banks, really. They're duking it out. And I don't really care so much one way or another, but because you can already have yield on stablecoins. It's just on secondary markets. You can lend out a stablecoin and get a yield on it, right? These markets already exist. It's just, can they do it directly, is the question. So it matters for some of the stablecoin issuers, I think, especially the US ones that want to compete with the banks. But for us, for us Bitcoiners, we don't really have a horse in the race. Like either, Jamie Dimon will win or, some US based stablecoin will win.
So in terms of self-custody versus all these financial engineering products built on top of Bitcoin, where do you think we're going in the future?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, obviously, a lot of Bitcoiners they don't like these things. They don't like the concept of digital credit. They don't like strategy. But I think they don't really understand that is not targeted towards them. They're aiming towards a different market. They're directing these products to people that don't necessarily care about Bitcoin or understand Bitcoin. They just want a dividend. And that's perfectly fine, right? It's not that everyone has to try to educate everyone into having self-custody, because that's sort of a thankless endeavor, right? It's actually very, very hard to get people to buy Bitcoin and take it off an exchange, right? You're fighting 2 battles here, which is that you have to first buy Bitcoin and second, take custody of it, which is an alien concept for probably 99% of the people on the planet, right? They just know that I buy something, I keep it with some third party. That's the norm. And I think if you want to have an analogy, it's like convincing someone to not use Gmail, but to use some email client and keep their email on their device, right? Like, why? I can just log into Gmail and see everything there. Like, why should I use this other thing and download my mail, right? It's like, that's the battle, really, that is taking place. But again, like, what a lot of the other players are doing is targeting new markets, institutional players, players that cannot have Bitcoin in self-custody or even have exposure to Bitcoin. So I think you have to appreciate what they're doing and that they are expanding the footprint of Bitcoin. They're not necessarily doing what you like, which is getting people to buy and keep it in self-custody, which, just to clarify, I think is the best thing. And we are building Aqua for that purpose, like buy Bitcoin, keep it in self-custody. But at the same time, I appreciate that Strategy and other companies are growing the pie, because people that have exposure to STRC might choose to understand what is the mechanism behind it, and they might get down into the rabbit hole and get a book and read about Bitcoin and then buy Bitcoin, right? The same for ETFs. Like, some retired grandma in her 80s is probably not going to pick up a copy of the Bitcoin Standard on her own, but she might see something come up for an ETF, maybe through her financial advisor, and she might buy that, and then she might wonder, okay, well, this thing's performing pretty good. What is it? And they might come into Bitcoin. So I think all roads lead to Bitcoin, and you have to accept that people will do things with Bitcoin that you yourself don't like or think is suboptimal. But the solution to that is, going out and getting them into spot Bitcoin and taking custody of it.
How do you see us ending 2026? It's been a rough one so far, but how do you see the next 6 months going?
Well, it's difficult to predict. I mean, I've been predicting an Omega candle and 1 million Bitcoin for a couple of years, because I see that we're all going to see this massive bull run. Bitcoin is going to 1 million, and I just cannot rationalize how people wouldn't front run that and buy now, sending it up to 1 million well in advance. Because if you look at every single model, Bitcoin usually will hit 1 million in 2030 to 2032. And that's just a few years away. And if every model is pointing that direction, and just a reminder, there is no model that predicts Bitcoin going down. And you have the US debt approaching and crossing 40 trillion soon, and no sign of slowing down, no other avenues to mitigate increasing debt and increasing government spending, you have to come to the same logical conclusion that Bitcoin is going to go up massively. So again, I'm bullish, but you cannot predict the future. If I could predict the future, then I'd be, Elon Musk, richer than Elon Musk. But you never know. It could draw out that we're in sub 100K levels for another year. Who knows? But I think if the markets are rational, then we should start to see a big rebound, and it'll be a fast rebound, because to get to 1 million in 4 years' time, it means we have to go up a lot significantly over the next 4 years. And I think it's just a matter of time. And this is why I'm really bullish that big things, large market cap assets like gold and silver can double, triple, quadruple. And Bitcoin is more nimble, more accessible, and bearer. And there is no gateway to prevent anyone from getting it now, because it's in ETFs. So I could see like $1 trillion flowing in rather easily. And who knows? I mean, if a private company can IPO at $1 trillion, why can't $1 trillion flow into Bitcoin? And that's what you have to really prepare yourself for. The day that all the capital comes to Bitcoin and there's not a lot of Bitcoin left.
So, could Bitcoin really reach $1 million? Right now, that idea sounds impossible to many people. After all, the market is gripped by fear. Prices have fallen, and confidence is fading with every headline. But if Bitcoin has taught investors anything over the years, it's that the biggest moves often begin when almost nobody believes they're possible. Whether Samson Mow's bold prediction ultimately comes true, only time will tell. But one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Mow seems to be looking far beyond today's price action. While most people are focused on the next dip, he's focused on the next decade. And perhaps that's what separates those who simply react to the market from those who understand where it's heading. The question isn't just whether Bitcoin can reach $1 million. The real question is, if it does, will you still be watching from the sidelines, or will you have recognized the opportunity before everyone else? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest Bitcoin, crypto, and macro market updates. I'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Bitcoin will ever reach $1 million? Or is Samson Mow too optimistic? Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.